I'll never claim to be great at first-person shooters, but I've become far more comfortable in my ability to aim consistently in the past couple years due to discovering what I'm going to cover in this video. Hopefully you learned something you didn't know before watching, and make some noticeable improvements in your aim in game. I don't intend on covering hardware much, as the variables involved in sensitivity can be complicated enough. However, if it matters, I use a Razer Viper Mini, which is a very lightweight mouse. These tips should help you improve on any mouse though. Aim inconsistencies can come from a variety of factors, including mouse weight, practice, and subtle grip changes. One huge source of inconsistency that most people aren't aware of is the Windows Enhanced Pointer Precision property. All this means is mouse acceleration, which affects the movement of the pointer on screen, based not on distance covered on the mouse pad, but on the mouse sensor's velocity. Already you may be able to see why this isn't helpful for first-person games. Muscle memory is important, but also takes time to build. An added variable into the equation of x distance on mousepad equals y distance on screen means it takes exponentially more time to build the muscle memory required for consistency. Another huge disadvantage of this feature is the inability to measure your sensitivity in a numerical or objective manner. Although this may not be important for you currently, the ability to do this is critical in becoming consistent, as I'll cover later on. This feature is, however, useful in graphic design and editing, where the user may want to be extra precise and thus move their mouse really slow in order to line something up, in which case muscle memory isn't as important as versatility in the way in which such a user may use their mouse. DPI stands for dots per inch, and is a measurement of the raw sensitivity of the mouse going into your computer. It's clearly important when it comes to working out the correct mouse sensitivity for you, and translating that across different games. The website mousesensitivity.com is one I use every time I get a new first-person game which I intend on investing time into. It allows you to put a known sensitivity for one game into it, and extrapolate the equivalent sensitivity for countless other games, without having to worry about small, probably inconsequential differences between your sensitivities in two games. Because it's arguably the most iconic shooter native to PC, and the fact that its sensitivity is actually identical to many other games, source or otherwise, I'd suggest using CSGO as a baseline sensitivity. This happens to be useful for me because I use a sensitivity of 1 in CSGO, making it very easy for me to remember my sensitivity when quickly checking what I need to use in a different game. When deciding on an ideal sensitivity, it isn't always applicable to choose whatever is most comfortable for you, if your in-game performance is important to you. Oftentimes it's more beneficial to work around your limitations, especially desk or mousepad space limitations. Of course, if it's possible, you should remove such limitations in the first place, but in many cases we don't have that choice. For example, my desk has a wall on either side of it, meaning I actually have less than my available mousepad space to use if I want to avoid slamming my fingers into it. In a case like this, I think raising your sensitivity a touch from what you find comfortable will actually help you improve more than using your ideal sensitivity, because we can remove the desk wall from the equation now as a source of inconsistency, since I'm far less likely to come into contact with it. This will likely only apply to a small number of people, but I think it's still worth mentioning, as having to work around a constricted space can be difficult. Here's where we get to turning your overall sensitivity into a number which you can use to compare to other users, as well as, if you're not sure on what to use, for a rough guide to be between. For simplicity, I'm just going to call these sensitivity units, and the easiest way to work them out is to take your DPI of your mouse and multiply that by your CSGO sensitivity. If you're unsure of your mouse's DPI, you can check software you may have installed for it, the manufacturer's website or store page, or an online tool I'll leave linked in the description. For me, my DPI is 1200 and my CSGO sensitivity is 1, so my overall sensitivity comes out to 1200 sensitivity units. My recommendation for those who think their sensitivity may be the bottleneck on their accuracy would be to sit between 600 and 2400 sensitivity units. If you have the desk space for less than 600, then go for it, but it's worth considering the amount of effort required to move your mouse at that point, potentially hindering your reaction times. A higher sensitivity than 2400 may not seem out of the ordinary to you. In fact, most people will start off above this, but I'd suggest reducing your sensitivity to a value within this threshold slowly until it feels more comfortable. From my experience, you should still be able to react to your environment sufficiently, but you gain much more control over your shot placement. A similar function unit would be centimeters or inches per 360-degree turn. However, this takes longer to work out and can potentially have more inconsistency in measurement. If you don't have CSGO installed but want to find your ideal sensitivity, you have a couple of options. You can either download CSGO or a game you may prefer, such as Quake, which share identical sensitivities, or what I use, which is a free tool called Aimtastic. It's a pretty standard looking aim trainer, which is useful in itself, but it uses the same sensitivity as CSGO, making it much more useful for us. The aim challenges can be used to find a sensitivity in which you find yourself performing best, and use that number directly in the sensitivity unit calculation in order to stay consistent in all games. The final point I want to cover is consistency. I'm often curious as to whether people use the same sensitivity across all games or not. For me, I don't change it regardless of the genre, as I've chosen the most versatile sensitivity for me, and this allows me to gain muscle memory which otherwise wouldn't have been able to exist. Once you gain muscle memory with your chosen sensitivity, you'll likely find yourself able to aim with much more consistency and speed than before, as you'll intuitively figure out the distance you need to move your mouse on the desk in order to turn your character a certain amount. Where this may not apply is in third-person games, where your camera doesn't just turn with your character, but also moves orbitally around them. You may find you need to raise or reduce your sensitivity with these games. If you liked the video or learned something new, don't bother subscribing because I don't upload. Thanks.